Hey everyone, this is Carson Grubaugh.
Hi, Sean Robinson. We're living the line, and today joining us is Mr. Matthew Battaglia. I didn't know your full
Hello.
name was Matthew.
It's
Matt.
Matt.
I'm
Legally,
going
it's
by your Zoom tag name, which, by the way, would make me Sean M. Robinson. Apparently,
Sometimes Rebecca Robinson.
Yeah,
Or
sometimes.
Rachel Robinson. Sorry,
Rachel
Not
Robinson.
Rebecca,
Yeah,
Rachel.
I'm lucky I wasn't logged in as work or something.
Yeah,
work or something. That's a good name. So Matt has got a great new book out now called Ghosts of the Carousel. Oh, are we all going to hold it simultaneously? Can we get all three of us?
well, I have mine like let me get mine where you can see it on screen here instead of holding it
There we
up.
go.
And
Wait, did you guys get? I sent you some goodies with it too.
Yeah, I left that in there so that we could show.
Oh, sweet.
I got this from Matt the other day, and we got a little Ghost of the Carousel sticker and a really nice
sticker.
There should have been a sticker in there.
My sticker was stolen by my mailman. I caught my mailman, by the way, throwing the 6 feet across. He didn't want to step onto my porch. He came.
Oh God!
I heard the beep. You know, the beep beep. He's going to deliver a package, and I go out, and he's
just launching it.
Oh my
right
God.
across, and it goes flying by, like lands at my feet.
Oh man!
Stepped out.
Oh well, I got 2 stickers. A really nice Spider-Man sticker.
Sean, you should have. They should have been in the bag with the book. I know that you got stickers.
I got print.
I got a Doctor Strange print.
Sweet. Okay.
But no sticker. But I'm not going to complain.
Okay. All right.
I'm not going to complain about the lack of swag because it's a very enjoyable book. Out from Dauntless Stories is the name of the imprint. And Matt, how did you hook up with Dauntless Stories?
I was working with a writer on another book, and they had pitched it to Dauntless, and so we're in talks about doing that next year. But I had this kind of book sitting and kind of waiting, and I was debating on what I wanted to do with it, and I didn't feel confident enough to kickstart it yet. Like right. I didn't. So I just emailed them and I said, hey man, like I have this book, it's done. You can't change anything about it, but it's done. And if you'd like to publish it, like we can do it, and do it as like a test run, because it's just going to sit, it would sit in this drawer over here to my right and like just sit there until I didn't do anything with it. So
yeah.
So it worked out great. And I mean, it was a pretty smooth process. And I felt like that along the way, I learned enough where I think if I wanted to do my next thing, I could kickstart it if I wanted to. So it was great. And yeah, so that's how I hooked up with them. And they were very supportive and nice. And I mean, it helps for, this is my first thing in ages to come out. And so it really helps to have like a group of people pushing your book, because it's really tough to do it, to sell it on your own.
Yeah, well, that's the downside with the current setup and the current, sort of, hoofing it yourself economy is, I mean, who among us has the skills to draw the thing, finish the thing, complete the thing, scan the thing, do the reproduction stuff, actually advertise it and write copy for your own book? I mean, really?
Market the thing, package the thing, ship the thing,
work with the distributor. I mean, and some of these things are just labor intensive, right? But other things like writing copy to how to advertise it, I don't think that's in the purview of many artists,
No, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, I finished the first, I don't know, 12 or 13 pages in 2019, and I had printed it as a mini comic. And I was like, 2019, I this is going to be my year. I've got a mini comic, I'll go, maybe do some shows, but at least have like something to show people. Right. And then I had said, like, I think I went to SPX at the, in 2019, and then 2020 happened and there were no cons. So I was like, so and then I just had more things that I felt like I wanted to say with the story, so I just took it further.
So what I want to know is, why didn't you start your own con in 2020? If you had had 12 people attend, you would have had the biggest one of the year.
I could have just done a virtual one. Yeah.
All those blockbuster movies that had 12,000 tickets sold or whatever.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. But I just yeah, I mean, I've been wanting to do something that I produced all by myself for a while, and I mean, I have a bunch of sort of half finished projects lying around, but I feel like this one I finished. I mean, granted, if I went back to it, like, there are a number of things that I'll change, I would change on a second printing, but
Right.
you know, other than the constant tinkering that I think every artist does with their work, you know, I think it's a complete book.
Yeah, you said it just a minute ago that you felt like you had more to say, which I'm curious about, because it feels like a total unit to me. The first part is obviously dealing with loss of some sort, and just to give people a sense of what the book is, it's kind of a poetic, metaphorical look at loss, I would say.
Yeah.
Whether it be death or divorce or something like that, I'm not sure, but that seems to be like the realm that it's in. And then as you get to the end, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's like a more of like where you go from loss. So is that something that in between starting it and finishing it, life circumstances has changed where you were able to have like this different ending to it, or how did that go?
Yeah, and I think that you talked with NFN Kalon, am I pronouncing his name right? And you're in your interview with him, he said like that, like, he tries not to over explain what the work is for him, because he doesn't want to color it, and that's generally been what I've been trying to do when I talk about the book, because like, I mean, there are some really odd, like, there are things that personally happen that are very obviously, I think, like my dog died last year, so like, I think that's obvious that that's in there. But a lot of the other stuff, I mean, I got married at the end of 2019, and so there's a lot of reflection about having a partner, and that's sort of where we end up at. Like, my wife and I met at the Stone Pony, which is where the ending of this book is, so there is that emotional arc to it, I guess. But yeah, I was just trying to deal with a lot of those feelings in the abstract about moving on from sort of past relationship, but also like guilt and grief about things, and sort of how do you process those.
It's interesting. I think that non-artists oftentimes make the mistake of thinking that because something is used as a sort of seed, that means that every image has a direct metaphor or a direct line to some type of, they expect somebody to be up there bloodletting,
Right.
You're on the comics performance stage and you're spilling your intestines out in front of all of us, and we're supposed to applaud. But I don't think that there's enough sort of general awareness of the way that an artist can process something in a, more like, I don't know, I've got a compost bin out my window here. You take the compost, you put different things in there, and you water it, and you expect the product to have a certain level of homogeneity, but it's still related to the thing that you put into it, right? You're processing things. You're not necessarily like making a direct line. This means this means this means this.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect summary of how that's how this work came about. Is it's just sort of it's just a constant processing, and I think that that's how everything that I'm doing is sort of, and the books that the next thing that I want to do for myself is another sort of, you just keep notebooks of sketches or like little lines of things that it's like, okay, this is a thought that I had, and then eventually it turns into something, hopefully, and if it doesn't, then it wasn't that good of an idea to begin with.
Yeah, maybe I picked the wrong gardening metaphor. Maybe compost is.
Well, you need compost to grow plants and stuff. So.
Right. Let's say this is the plant stage then, instead of
it turns into life.
I know that though. It's like, it's the ideas that you're still rummaging over a month later that you're like, that's the one that's worth it. The one that's like really cool for 2 days, not so worth it, right?
Yeah. Like you have to keep coming back to it, which is what happened with this. I think that I drew the sequence with the dog. Well, actually I drew
let's see
these,
some of those originals.
So I drew this sequence, which was that
that shows up well.
My in-laws have a house in Delaware that sort of overlooks the water, and so I find that to be a really peaceful place to draw, and that's where I did like some of these pages. And it was first, I had this dream nightmare after my dog died of the dog running out the water, and I was like, I gotta just put this down, and so I just did these pages. And then you'll see I cut dialogue because I thought it was too obvious. Like you didn't need to.
Right.
Yeah.
But I did this sequence of pages sort of right after that. And then,
I like how you've got like a grid back there, even on a splash page.
Yeah, I especially for these, I think that I had just printed out this what is it? I had just printed this grid out, and then I just kind of worked it all out on the page. I don't know that I did any layouts for this one, for these.
But you had that constant grid underlying everything.
Yeah,
so there's
everything.
Okay.
Everything was built on that grid, and I think it removes the decision. And then these ones I did more like I started laying it out on like in my iPad, on the iPad, but they're all based on that grid, and it makes, I think it makes, I don't know, for this was, I really wanted to do it quickly, and I wanted you to I wanted everything to be done in the ink as much as possible, so that way you can feel it, or like I want the emotion to come through. And I think if you like sit around waiting for like a perfect or making a perfect drawing,
right. Will you show us that one again?
That's my favorite page. I think
this is my favorite page as well. And this was just, my wife said you need like something to transition from the old, like the first mini comic, to the new stuff.
Right.
And so I came up with this page, which I really liked.
And then you're doing digital tone then, because there's a lot of tone in the book.
This
and that
one
page changes a lot with the tone on it.
Yeah, this page needed, I'll eventually add tone physically. I mean, the original pages for the first short, I toned them, but like I did the tone traditionally.
Okay. So tell us again too, you were explaining beforehand about a show that those are framed for a show.
Yeah, so in last year, the LBI, so Long Beach Island Foundation of the Arts and Sciences, did like a comics exhibit, and they had, like this was something that they reached out to people about in like 2019. And so someone there had seen the mini comic online, or someone who was also in the show had seen my mini comic online and was like, hey man, you should, I sent it over to the show, like I think it should be up in there. And so they reached out and they were like, hey, yeah, we'd love to show your work at the show. So great. I guess I'll get them framed. And then, a year goes by, and then it's like, oh, we're not going to have an opening because it's 2020 and everything's shut down. So, it was interesting though. There were a number of people in that show that like make a lot of like comics, and I follow them online. I think Claire Connolly, who I think I follow her on Instagram, but she was in the show and she makes a ton of comics. There were some people that were in the show that were sort of, and I guess we can talk a little art school stuff, but like people that like, so I went to Rutgers and I know Liechtenstein went to Rutgers, and I've always hated Liechtenstein because
Yeah.
it's like the fine artist taking the tropes of comics and being like, this is beneath us, but look at me, I'm elevating it because I've reproduced it on canvas. And I mean, there's so I don't know, there were people who fell into, I think, the Liechtenstein sort of mold, and I don't mean that negatively towards their art necessarily, like it's not for me, but it's just this weird, I think it's hard to display comics in gallery, or unless if the artist is someone who's truly huge. Like I just don't, I'm not even sure that that's how I even really want to interact with a comics page.
Well, that's the thing, is that you read a comics page. You don't read things on a gallery wall.
Right.
Your engagement with a piece in a gallery has almost as much to do with scale and placement as it does with any merit as a piece of art. Having been to, I don't know, I mean, a ridiculous amount of galleries, and it occurs to me that the thing that really impacts things is like, how big is it and where is it, and how is the space framed. When you go to a show, unless you already know the art and are going to go right up in your nose and engage in it. I mean, there used to be shows at the Fry with original in Seattle with original comic art, and I literally got in trouble at a Crumb show by one of the people who was working it from getting too close, and I was like, the damn thing is 8 inches tall.
Yeah,
I'm supposed to be 2 feet away from it. What the
So I just told my
your
students,
nose in it.
Sorry, yeah, you should. I just told my students yesterday, because I had a student who did a project that didn't look right up on the wall, but if it would have been like on a podium, it would have looked cool. And so I said, you've never thought about this yet, but you got to think about venue. And I told them about seeing Crumb. I saw Crumb at Pace Wildenstein in New York, his illustrated book of Genesis. And they had the whole 300 some odd page book on the wall. And yeah, it's cool to see all the whiteout and all of that as like an artifact. But there were people in there reading it. They were going page by page reading it. And I was thinking, what are you doing? They have the book at the counter. Go buy the book. And comics, I think, wanted to be justified as a fine art so bad that we oftentimes put ourselves in the inappropriate venue for consumption.
It's an applied art. I mean, it's closer to basket weaving than oil painting,
Yeah, it is
Matt,
production.
Like with the digital tones, like that page of the feet, like did all the ones that get showed in the gallery have the tone on them, or like would you show that piece without the tone on it, because it's a totally different experience?
If I do a second printing, I'll actually I'll go through and probably physically tone all of this stack of pages that I didn't.
Right.
And then rescan them in, because I think that the look that you get with having like real tones and like being able to scrape them away and all that stuff, like I just don't, that doesn't work. It doesn't look right. It doesn't look the same digitally.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely something that I will do at some point. So if I were to display them, or even if I were to sell them, I think that I would tone them, just because it's not like, it's not, this is like, I like this as a piece, and it's probably one of my favorite pieces that I did for the book, which is, I don't know, for being so simple, but it is. But this isn't how I intend for someone to necessarily see it.
Right.
And it's way more powerful in the book with that tone on it too. I think.
Like I want you to see it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
like as an artist, I like seeing all the white out there. Like I think that that's always cool on an original.
But the translation of the whiteout into the print too is a different effect that changes the impact of the image as well.
Yeah, because it's all dark. It's not supposed to be white. you know,
Yeah, and you
supposed to
lose
be.
some of the grays.
Yeah. So
And from what you're showing us, this is printed close to the size of the original art.
it might, yeah, it probably is. Yeah, if that's, it might be bigger. I drew it on 9x12 because it's faster that way.
Yeah, well, and I think that might give it some of the visceral impact that it has as a object. I've talked a lot about this before in previous things, but people, it takes a long time to learn how to draw for reduction. And you know, if you've got a finish that you like, just skip the step and draw it the exact same size. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I usually make this size decision based on it. Like, if it's something that is just for me or something that I want to do quickly, I do it at 9x12 because it's faster that way.
Right.
And I like, if I do a page at 11x17, like, I think that they generally tend to look pretty nice, but it just takes a lot longer. Like, this one I did, this one's cool.
You're so organized over there.
Thanks. Like, this one I did as like a sort of a, you know, just sort of like a sample type of page for a thing that I'm never going to finish, but, you know, just like a one pager, like, sort of idea. But like, that's an 11x17.
It's
and then
cleaner
this one,
looking though, somehow.
Right, it's much cleaner. This one's, I did 11x17. This one was,
so like the biggest association I see when I look at, and especially that shot of the feet, is like a very Paul Pope vibe. But then that other one you just showed looked more like Sampaio or someone like that.
Who?
What's his first name? He did like the Billie Holiday.
Oh, I think, yeah, I know who you're
Sampaio.
talking about. Is that
Carlos Sampaio?
Is that
or like Dave McKean when he did like the jazzy
that's
stuff.
Munoz did that. The
Okay.
Billie Holiday comic.
Sampaio the writer then.
Oh yeah.
I'm mixing up. Yeah. But
I do like Munoz. I think I must have been reading a lot of him. I must have been reading Alex Sinner at the time.
Yeah, that's
usually
whatever.
Yeah,
sorry,
whatever
I got the writer's name.
Whatever I'm looking at usually tends to sort of affect whatever my style is. You know, like whatever I'm ingesting the most of at any given moment. So
yeah, I have that problem too. It's like gets infectious, right? You're like, oh, that's so cool. I gotta try it. It's hard to say. I'm always impressed by people that can stay stable with their style.
I can't. I mean, I know that there are tics that I have, but it's really tough to be like, oh, you know, I'm gonna just draw one way all the time. I'm always trying to get better, and I feel like style is, you know, your style is where you change things. Like, that's, I don't know. If I never change my style up, like I don't know that I would ever see any improvement. Like, these are other pages that I did for something that's on my site, and these I did all with like mostly with nibs, and that's like a totally different look.
Right.
Yeah, because it's so brushy on Ghost of the Carousel.
Yeah. But even the first, I mean, the first 12 pages are mostly like I started with nib.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Like, there's not like
it's
this isn't a these aren't really a brush line here for these pages.
Yeah,
I mean, there's brush for all the shadows.
That's a big flexible knit. Well, I guess part of my assumption is that I didn't realize that these were printed at size, so I thought these lines were bigger and thicker than they were. Okay, that starts to make more sense.
Yeah.
Taking it back to the difference between reading and seeing and sort of the gallery experience, I just had a quick anecdote. I was in a show with, you know, like something like 24 Seattle cartoonists, including some people who, you know, I'm not fit to wash their nibs. And it was a opening night, and we were supposed to be there for something like 4 hours or 3.5 hours or something, as people were going to be coming through and drinking cocktails and things like that. And after about half an hour, it was clear to me that no one was going to sell anything, because you could just see the way that people walked around the space, and everybody beholding these teeny tiny originals in this very large space that was like, very inviting and had drapery, and there was free wine. People were just there for the social experience, and they weren't there to engage with a tiny little thing on the wall. And so I flipped over one of the free wine cups, and I made a sign for myself that said portraits, and your price or something like that. And I drew marker portraits of a few free patrons who were interested and gave them to them. And I made the most money of anybody the entire night, because I just drew and drew and drew and drew these portraits. And literally people were ignoring like works by some of the greatest North American cartoonists to sit down in front of me and have me make a marker portrait of them. And then they were giving me $10 or $20, and I did, I could do like 15 or 20 an hour.
That's brilliant.
Spectacle and performance.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not saying it like, oh, I'm so great. My point is that the experience of making comics and the experience of reading comics are so foreign to that kind of environment that, like, I don't really even know what people are thinking when they,
Well, and even like the person who goes to a gallery is not. They're generally, the person that goes to a gallery and like the person who reads and enjoys comics are usually not the same person.
Right.
And I mean, I buy original art from artists that I like, but I also make comics, and I like, like I look at them and I enjoy looking at them. But it's such a, I don't know. I feel like so many people like we're always, there's always this inferiority complex around making comics that, if someone hadn't reached out to me about the show, I don't know that I would have even considered it. It's not like it did anything for me necessarily. But I remember in college, Mike, like my thesis, my art thesis, this is at the Mason Gross School. So I also did a very week-long stint at SVA, and the idea of being at an art school in New York City after being there, not even starting classes, but just seeing all the people that were at SVA at the time terrified me so much. I was like, I can't do this. This is not the scene. All of that Art School Confidential stuff, that whole mini comic, it's like you can get that. You just show up for one day and you will see every type of person, and you either can hang or you can't, and I couldn't.
It's so spot on. Someone commented after that Callion video that we did, and he was telling, he said that we just need to someone commented that we should just make a whole book about all of the art school stories. And I said, well, Art School Confidential like sums it up in 4 pages, right?
Yeah. That person has no idea. I mean, the three of us could have just talked for 8 hours and not scratch the surface. I mean, I don't want to get into it right now, but I will tell you guys, the first time that I was paid to draw someone was for a woman who was in an art class with me, who saw my nude drawings of a nude model and said, my boyfriend who's in prison wants a picture of me. Can we just leave it at that?
endless stories. So maybe good that you got out of SVA.
Well, but then I remember then at Rutgers, I was at the art school there, and everyone wanted to be like they were in a like art school, and so they were trying so much harder to be art school kids that it was basically the same. Just you had a football team.
This should be a whole subset of the channel. It's just art school stories, endless
art school
about it. But I did a comic for my thesis, and like I was struggling with the whole like, well, how do you show it? Because you had to do like a gallery show. And it's like, well, I put it up on the put the pages up, but then I had a couple copies printed, on a shelf so people could like read them. And I also made like a motion comic trailer thing and whatever. And that was on a TV. The problem was that people just took the comics. So by like, I had, I only had a few of them, and it's like, well, they weren't meant to be taken. I realized that you need to have a sign. If you don't want someone to steal something, you need to let them know.
Like printed on laminate with a chain and like a ring through it. But
like
then they're like
a pen at the bank.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be like, well, this chain and this laminate is part of the piece, so I have to consider it as something that's like tied down, so it must have to do with slavery, or there's no avoiding it.
Well,
I don't even have any copies of that anymore. I don't think. I think they all disappeared.
They all went away. You needed that chain. You should have stolen the chain from the bank as part of your performance.
I wasn't smart enough for that.
Well, thanks for talking to us today, Matt. And people who are watching this, do yourself a favor and go pick up a copy of Ghosts of the Carousel. And man, what a cover. I mean, this just is a fantastic summation of the entire thing, which makes me wonder, did you draw this first or did you draw this last?
I drew that.
That's the only correct answer, is one of those two things.
I can't remember. So I also did a lot of in post on that.
Okay.
So like I shrunk the figure down, and I think that I did I think I did it last out of the first batch of pages. Like it was from, these first like 13 pages. Like it was done at the same time as those. Gotcha. So I don't even remember how I came up with it anymore. I guess because the whole thing, he's drowning. So
yeah, the inversion.
I thought it was pretty odd. It must have been pretty obvious to me when I came up with it.
Well, I think the graphic inversion is the real strength of it to me. Besides the actual content of the image, which is also very strong, but the graphical inversion of the negative versus the white negative, and also the just having his feet come out. And it's funny, when you showed the original art there, I think it is a weaker image for having the larger figure, because you've got him contained within here
where the carousel.
Exactly, the figure itself is arising out of the original. And
I mean that's the nice thing about with doing all the like production stuff, and when you scan it, and there's so much that you can. It's one of the other reasons why it's like you want to. Like, this is how I want people to interact with the work, because there's so much that gets changed from phase to phase within comics. There's so much cleanup and things that you do once you scan something in, and I created like a comics trailer for this book, which is like 5 pages, but I sampled basically panels from pages throughout the book to create it, and I wrote out new dialogue to throw on it. That was the other thing that I really wanted to do with this. I wanted to hand letter the whole thing to varying degrees of success, but I don't like the digital lettering. I find it's not that I haven't been able to get it to, it doesn't always mesh right with art, especially when it's like super brushy. I feel like it always looks off.
Yeah, it's an interesting observation. I had that argument with a cartoonist of my acquaintance, and the thing that my eye has settled on is what the balance of the ligature density is to the art itself, and like basically like there's a huge amount of selection of the font that has to do, I think, with basically how dominant is the base size, how thick is it in comparison to the line work, and that if you have a sort of median thickness, like it's as thick as the median line in the line work, I think it can work fairly well as long as you vary the expression around that. I don't know, Dave's digital mock-up lettering on Strange Death I think works really well, because he actually did paste up and like shrunk it to the actual size that he wanted. So he's actually looking at it as a component of the whole. Yeah.
Whereas often it's just kind of slapped on top.
Yeah. Right. Or even done by production staff instead of the artist, or.
Right. Well, and I started reading Cerebus, and we can save this trip for another day, but one of the things I've noticed a lot that he does a lot with typography that I feel probably goes, I don't know if it goes unnoticed, but like in high society, he seems to be adding in a lot of like mechanical type. Like he has the whole section where he's talking with Sensuous Poe and it's all I'm guessing like computer type, but
Right.
it works really well because it's sort of the way that it it's not on top of the panel, so it's sort of in the side. And then when he's doing when they're at the convention, he's doing the like pullouts with the transcripts. And again, like you're acknowledging you're using that, and it's acknowledging the format. And I think that works really well. It also helps that it's all black and white too. I think the color and then the white bubble is always sort of jarring too. So I don't know.
And in your work here, I think it needs the hand letter because you have this very quick brushy attack, and you've got like a lot of brushed sound effects in there that are calligraphic, a lot of the swoosh of the ocean and stuff. And
yeah,
I think
that was
for
my
this
favorite thing to do.
especially, the lettering, the calligraphy.
Yeah. Like I really like doing those sound effects. I don't know why, but it's fun.
And
So,
the buzz, there's a buzz on this fly here that's really good. So I think that was totally smart on this type of book. It definitely needed to be hand lettered.
So Matt, where can people pick up the book?
dauntlessstories.com. You can also go to my website, mattjbat.com, and if you click on Ghost of the Carousel, the first button will take you to the store.
And we'll put linkies down here.
Links below.
I'm not pointing to my groin. I'm pointing to I can't go all the way
to the description
below
box.
the video.
And then I'm Matt J Bat everywhere. So my website's Matt J Bat, Twitter, Instagram, all those things.
We'll put your Instagram up too. Yeah, for sure.
Sweet. Yeah, and I'll hopefully got some more things coming. What'd you guys think of the production? Was it okay? I'm not sure how I feel about the cover. The cover stock.
You don't like the cover stock? Oh, I don't know. It makes it feel nice and solid.
It does, but I feel like it's got bends and smudges a lot. But
mine
I
is
like the
pristine.
interior pages.
Mine is pristine as so far, and I quite enjoyed your design on the in back cover and the interior front and back cover. I like the gray layer over the line art.
And I'm really glad on the inside it's on a matte paper.
Yeah,
it looks nice. It's a beautiful book.
That was the printer had a good heads up, like, hey, we'll just keep the insides matte, and I think that worked great. But yeah. And Sean, thank you once again for help with all of the production stuff, because I think it really made the pages look a lot better.
It's my pleasure, and thanks for reaching out. And we'll debrief sometime about methods of digital tone, because I got some ideas for you. For future projects. But in the meanwhile, this is a fantastic one. And Carson and I have a little announcement that our future project, The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, is going to be coming out earlier than previously discussed. So rather than the December 1st direct market date and probably December 14th, which would have just been totally impossible, bookstore date, this is going to be pushed up a couple weeks. We don't know exactly what the date is going to be yet, but the printer is sending them to Diamond's warehouses on October 25th. So we will have some more info for you guys soon, but if you guys are interested, these are likely going to go very fast. The extra copies that are not already pre-sold, which there are not a ton of after the 4 or 5 month wait.
I can't wait to get mine.
Grab Strange Death of Alex Raymond. Definitely grab Matt's Ghosts of the Carousel.
And we'll be looking out for future stuff, Matt. Thanks so much for talking with us today.
Keep us posted.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
I really appreciate it. Love the channel.
Yeah.